Hi everyone, welcome to episode 7 of Sunday Stitches. How are we all? I hope you've all had a lovely Christmas and managed to fit in some crafting time. So let me know in the comments below what you've been working on over Christmas. I'm not going to show you today what I've been working on. I've decided to do a slightly different episode this Sunday. I thought we'd have more of a chatty episode. There's a lot of new subscribers to my channel, so if you're new here, welcome, and if you've been here for a while, welcome back. So today's episode is going to be slightly different because we have an influx of new subscribers to the channel. So I know there's some of you that watch the Sunday Stitches that are also new knitters and some of you that are experienced knitters. So I thought together we could create a helpful list for the newbie knitters of the things we wish we'd known as new knitters. So please do add any tips in the comments box below that you think would also be helpful to new knitters. And let's have a lovely chatty episode where we can just help each other out. Okay, so I have my list here of my top 10 things I would have liked to know as a newbie knitter. So my number 1 is choose a yarn you would like to work with. I do have a couple of exceptions which I should just run through with you now, and that is to avoid fancy yarns. So you don't want anything like, for example, this mohair blend here. It's very fluffy. I don't know how fluffy this is showing up on camera, but it's very fluffy, and this is going to be quite tricky to knit with as a new knitter. You don't really want all this fluff getting in the way of your stitches. You just want something that's going to give you a nice clear stitch definition, so you know where you're working, and you don't want this getting tangled or coarse. So yeah, avoid any fancy yarns at this stage, however beautiful they look and feel. So yeah, avoid that one. The next type of yarn I would avoid at this stage is something like this. Again, it's absolutely beautiful. The colours are amazing and it's really soft. And that is because it's a pure merino. You don't need to be investing in wools like this at this stage. There are cheaper options out there. You know, they are beautiful and they are lovely to knit with, but at this stage, while you're just learning and discovering whether you even like knitting, I wouldn't be tempted to invest in a wool like this at this stage. And also, where it's variegated, it can look really pretty and draw you in, and it's really exciting to knit with, which it is. But again, at this stage, I would just go for something quite simple so that you can easily see your stitches and not have any confusion with any of this colour work going on at this stage. So I would avoid that type of yarn too. So what would I go for? I would choose, I've got a couple here that would be good options. So I have this one here. Okay, this is just a double knit. Okay, so nothing fluffy going on, nothing fancy, just a pure colour, and this is going to give you a really nice stitch definition so you can just easily see your stitches and where you should be working. So this is a really good option. Any double knit, great. The other option you could go for is a slightly thicker wool like this one here. So this is a chunky. So this one here is a double knit, so it's slightly finer. If you feel you'd like something thicker to work with, then go for a chunky wool like this one here. There we go. So yeah, either of these I would say are a great starting point, but just keep it plain and keep it simple at this stage. So that's those. Okay, so moving on from that is you do not need any fancy equipment. So you will see an array of different needles, and I'm going to go through with you the basic needles that you would need at this stage, which are just something very simple like this. So this is a plastic pair and this is a metal pair. I would also recommend wooden needles as a beginner because you get less slip on the wooden needles. So they're a really good option too. So just a basic straight needle like this is perfect. So you'll see these needles are different sizes, and the way you determine which needle size you need to use for your wool is to look at the ball bands. So this here, on every wall you'll get a ball band. So this paper here is known as the ball band, and if you look here, you turn it round, it will show you the recommended needle size, and that's how you know which size needles to use with the wool you've chosen. So let's have a look here. So for this one, it recommends that you use a 10mm needle. So that will be a very chunky needle like this. So these are 10mm. So let me just show you. So here it says 10mm needle recommended, and there you have your 10mm. So that is the needle size that you would choose to use with this yarn. If we decided we wanted to use the double knit, this one here, so again, we can just look on the back, and here is the recommended needle size, which is a 4mm. So we would use 4mm needles for a double knit for this one. And if we were to use this one, we would go for the recommended 10mm. So that's how you're going to choose your wool, and that's how you're going to choose your needles. So you just need a basic needle. Avoid anything like this, interchangeables or circulars at this point. The other thing you will need is just a pair of scissors and a wide-eyed darning needle. So you can see the eye there. So you can see it has a really wide eye to fit your yarn through for when you need to sew in your ends. So all the equipment you need at this stage is a pair of knitting needles that corresponds to the size on your ball band of the wool that you choose, a pair of scissors and a wide-eyed darning needle, and that is all you need to get yourself started. So I'll just pop those over there. So next on my list is keep it simple. It's very tempting when we start knitting. We have seen some projects either in pattern books or online we really want to make, and sometimes we run before we can walk. I do recommend starting at the very beginning and either just knitting squares or start with a very simple basic project. So I do have a beginner's project in my Knitting for Beginners playlist here on YouTube. And I also have step-by-step instructions on how to cast on, how to do knit stitch, how to purl, how to do basic cast off. And then I also include a first project. So I will link those in the description box below for you. And also at the end of this video, I'll pop a link to that playlist if you want to check those out as well. So the first little project in that playlist that you will make is this garter stitch bag. So it's a really lovely project. It's not too long, but it's long enough to keep you interested. And the techniques you'll need to learn to make this little bag, you'll need to know how to cast on, you'll need to know garter stitch, and you'll need to know how to cast off. And then you also just need to sew your bag together. And that is it. You will be able to make a little bag, and then you can choose whether you want to add the little buttons on here like I have, or you can just leave it plain. And there you have a lovely little first knitting project. How cute is that little bag? Just keep it simple is the message for the first project that you choose to do. So as I say, I shall link the knitting courses in the description box below. You can learn all the techniques in order to enable you to knit this little bag. There we go. Okay, so next on my list is going back to the yarn slightly, and that is choose an inexpensive yarn. So the price range of yarns and wools can vary a lot. So at the lower end of the price scale, you have your basic acrylic yarns, which start around £2 for 100 grams. And then you can go right through to your pure wools and your hand spuns, which can be around £25 100 grams. So I would advise going somewhere down the lower end of the scale. If you don't want to use acrylic, that's fine. You can go in the middle and still get some really nice wools for a mid-range price. So yeah, shop around and have a look, or you can get some blends. Like this one here is a 20% wool, 80% acrylic. So that's another option, and something like this, 400 grams, will cost you around £4. So really, really reasonable if you don't want to go onto a pure wool and invest more. It's obviously personal choice. Some people prefer only to use pure wools, some people only like to use acrylic. That is your choice, and there are many, many choices from pure acrylics to pure wools and a lot in between. So shop around and see which one suits you and your budget, but I would advise not going top end at this stage. So next on my list is just practice, and just don't worry what it looks like. Just enjoy it for the process of the knitting rather than the finished outcome. The next one on my list is don't make your stitches too tight. The tighter you make your stitches, the harder you are going to find knitting. If anything, keep your stitches on the looser side. So it's all about tension, which you will learn about as you go through your knitting journey. But my best tip I can give you is to keep your stitches on the looser side rather than tight. Okay, so you don't want to be knitting really, really tense, which is hard, which is easier said than done. When we're learning anything new, we tend to be hunched up and very tense when we're concentrating. Just try to relax and just try to not pull those stitches really, really tight. Just try and relax a little bit with it. I say a looser stitch is better than a tight stitch. Okay, so the next thing I would say is to leave a long tail on your project when you're casting off. Leave a long tail for sewing up with. Just saves joining a piece of yarn on. You have your, so say for example, if you were to do this bag, then when you do your cast off, just leave a long tail before you cut the yarn, and you can use that tail to sew up with. The less ends we have to sew in, the better. Okay, so next on my list is join a knitting group. Join a community of knitters, and there you will have all different levels of knitters, from newbies to very experienced. The knitting community is a lovely place to be in, and knitters are a really, really friendly bunch, and we love to help each other out where we can. So I would advise finding a local knitting group perhaps and join that, and you'll get lots of useful hints and tips along the way. Everybody has something useful to share with you, I'm sure. So my next tip is to use YouTube. Use YouTube tutorials. As I say, I have my own set of knitting tutorials on here, which I will leave a link for, but there's many, many others. So just find somebody that you connect with and follow their knitting tutorials, because you can rewind and play as many times as you like. That's the benefit, I think, of learning something online as to in person. There are many benefits to learning knitting in person. Obviously, someone's there to help you and guide you along the way. Great thing about the knitting tutorials online is that you can come back to them whenever you want to, and you haven't got a set timeline to learn it in. So you can keep rewinding the video, pausing it, playing it, rewind, pause, until you actually get that technique. So I find that really helpful when I was learning to knit. And also sometimes when you're in a group situation where you're learning, when you go home, you might forget what you've learned. So I think online tutorials are great because they're always there for you to go back to any time of day, anytime you want to. So yeah, I would definitely recommend checking out some YouTube knitting tutorials as well, or even Craftsy or something like that is great as well. And my last but not least tip, and above everything else, is to have fun and enjoy it. So knitting is so therapeutic and so enjoyable, and you can take it anywhere. You can knit on the train, you can knit in the car, so long as you're not driving, you can knit when you're walking, you can knit anywhere. I hope you found today's video useful. If you have, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help other people find the videos. Have a fabulous week of knitting, and I shall see you next week. Bye for now.